Alrighty, 9 o'clock. Okay, let's get started. So, second installment on the Q&A to answer a few more questions and have you guys engage. So, as before, what I do, I'm going to read the question, going to give my insights and my advice, and then I'm going to turn my attention to the comments of you guys. So please, as you're listening, write down any questions, write down any thoughts, or any insights you might have yourself. That's what's really cool about live. Okay, here we go. So this one's from Shana, and she writes, it's a little bit long because what I did is I asked her for some information and she wrote me some more information. So I'm going to read this out. Okay, I have a bolter. First time I've ever experienced it with a horse. His anxiety builds, then when it gets too much for him, his reaction is to run. He does this on the ground and under saddle. He's a heavy horse cross, so doesn't act like a thoroughbred. He goes from 0 to 100 and to me without warning. Weirdly, I'm at peace with handling him and riding him, but when his anxiety goes up, mine does, and I'm just waiting for it. I want to be able to bring his attention to me, both on the ground and under saddle, and for him to trust me, that to stay with me is a safer option, not to vacate. Okay, so, and then I asked her a few more questions about it, and she said, I've had him to a few trainers, work with him, and one said he has only ever come across a few times training horses that truly bolt, and they were Percheron. So this horse is a Percheron cross. He also has had some trainer on a long line where they tied him high. He knows his strength, and a rope with a small human attached is no worry for him, even if you yield his hindquarters very quickly. He's more prone now to running off on the ground when lunged in a non-enclosed area. So I just don't do that now. I don't take him to in-hand breed shows for fear of him careering across the showgrounds. Weirdly, if he loads with another horse, he runs up the float. But on his own, he'll nick off at the tailgate. Even a professional couldn't get him out of it. And now I use an unconventional method using the rope and bum bar. Once he knows he can't run off, he walks up. Under saddle, he has done small bolts and one very serious one, which was him in a blind paddock. With the small one-range stops, gradually get him back. The big ones, I had no chance. Even seconds before the dressage judge said, he looks calm. I don't trust him anymore, especially with open spaces, and I'll struggle to take him to a competition again. I monitor his diet carefully now to keep extra energy low, which does help his anxiety. Okay, this is a situation that's really important to talk about, because the worst thing that can happen, really what a horse to learn, is its own strength. And I've dealt with a few of these horses that do it. And the thing with heavy horse crosses, like draft type crosses, cross with thoroughbreds, is that you do get a bit of a mixed response behavior. So the problem with some horses might throw more to a draft type response to stress, which is more difficult to read. Okay. And that's what's happened in this case, I believe. I'll just explain it. And some will throw to more like a thoroughbred, so they're more easier to read. So just to recap, and this is a theory, but it's kind of good to have in your memories to understand something. So the thoroughbred type horse kind of evolved from lines of horses that evolved where their natural predator was like big cats. So, and a combination of their main predator and the terrain they lived in meant that their form of defense was speed. Okay, so if they felt threatened, they ran. Okay. So they just ran and they got distance. So, because they had to outrun a big cat, which they can, all right? However, the lines of horses that evolved in Europe, okay, through natural selection and stuff, where their main predator was wolves, and remember, this is just a theory, and in a more kind of forest, different kind of terrain, when you're being hunted by a wolf pack in that terrain, running is not necessarily the good thing to do, because wolves hunt in a pack okay, and they're smart and strategic about it. So the theory is that those horses, they are more ones that flip into fight, okay, so they're the ones that will more grind to a halt and then they'll fight. So you've got the thoroughbred lines that are more, when they feel worried, they want to move. And so as soon as they feel worried, you'll see them with their legs starting to move, you know, they'll get agitated, and they're really, really easy to read when they get upset. So they tend to flip into flight, okay, a little bit more. Their propensity is more for that. But with the draft types, the ones that evolve with wolf predators, they can flip into fight, okay? So when they get worried, they are way more difficult to pick, okay? Because what they tend to do is they tend to go slower, okay? They appear calmer, but what they're doing is that they're preparing to lash out, okay? So they can strike and bite and kick and buck, okay? And they can also do this thing of barge, right? They'll barge over the top. So they'll actually aim for someone and barge. So my number one problem horse is the Frisian cross, okay? Frisian horses that have a reputation of being lovely and docile, which they are, but their problem is like, you know, in this particular case here, when they get worried, they're very easy to misread, okay? Because you would not go, and I haven't said this has happened in this case. This is what I'm saying has happened in other cases, to say involving the Frisian cross cases that I've come across. That when they've got worried about something, okay, take the thoroughbred. Thoroughbred starts getting worried about something. It gets agitated and it wants to move. There is no way in the hell you go and then give that a smack with a whip, okay, or get up it. You just wouldn't, because you know that was a really wrong thing to do, because you could tell the horse was agitated. Well, when, just say these Frisian crosses, when they get worried and they go slower, when they're slowing down and looking at whatever they're worried about to lash out at, what people do is they interpret that as the horse being lazy or not going forward. So they give it a crack with the whip, or they up the pressure in some cases, and the horse will just explode. It'll do something and it will absolutely frighten the bejesus out of somebody, because they think it just came out of nowhere. But it didn't, because what they were doing was misreading the signs. And they can be really, really difficult to pick. So just say I worked with a particularly difficult Frisian cross, which has actually had this exact same problem with this particular horse here. It had learnt to pull away. It had also learnt to buck under saddle, and it would either not go forward or rush off, okay? So it was a very complex horse. But watching it and observing it, the only thing that you could tell that it was forming a negative thought, okay, about something, was that it would slightly kink its tail. It had just put a little kink to the side in its tail, which gave an indication of the tension that was running through the horse, and that's all you could tell. So with these horses here, they're not intuitive or easy to pick when they get worried about something. So that's why something drastic normally happens. And what's happened in this case is this horse has learnt it is strong, like this other Frisian cross that I worked with. This horse had learnt that it was stronger than a person, and it could pull away if it wanted to. And it would seem to be like in this situation, very, very similar. So this is a very difficult situation to be in. So my recommendation for this horse is you've got to understand it's all coming from negative thoughts and feeling threatened and insecurity. So how I helped the Frisian cross that actually did this was that I just completely and absolutely rebooted his training. Absolutely rebooted his training from the start. So I didn't focus on what he was doing wrong. I focused on making sure he knew what to do correctly, okay, and really well, and dedicated, and went through it, okay. Now, so that's what I recommend for this horse here. So this question here is really a big horse issue, and it's done something that's really ended in, I don't blame this person from being really put off, because it is like these horses, it is very, very hard to pick that they're worried, and then they will, you get a lot of distrust. I can absolutely understand this. So the solution to this, or one of the possible solutions, is to completely and absolutely just pretend he's unbroken, and you completely absolutely start from the start. When it comes to leading and these evasions of leading, okay, I really recommend that's where your clicker training and your positive reinforcement can really be an added, because this horse knows that it's strong and it can be triggered by, when it gets a feeling, it just knows it can pull away. Well, the really good thing about clicker training and positive reinforcement is it's very, very good with ground handling type things, and it's very, very good at ingraining habits, okay, and really overcoming habits. So I would completely reboot, but I'd also instigate with leading and floating. I would go and I would look at clicker training and actually creating that circuit in the horse's head via a completely different training approach, because there's too much baggage. He's had too many kind of bad circuits laid down with pressure training, with both leading and floating and those things. So that is what I would recommend. You completely reboot the entire training and you add in some very specific, very clever strategic clicker training. Okay, so I'm just going to look at your comments now. Okay, all right, good. Hey guys, hi Jane, hey Virginia, hey Judy. No worries, don't worry about being late. I hope there's nothing terrible that you're calling the vet for. All right, okay, so I hope that was helpful. All right, next question. Distraction, tension, and anxiety created when out for a ride in the paddock or the arena, and there's a strange sight that appears. Okay, so the Virginia, this is your question. So which causes Noah's energy to get high enough for the fight-flight response to kick in, or even a quick jump and a spin? Some examples are kangaroo and alpaca push bikes, strange cars traveling slowly in the paddock next door, also vibrational noises, such as Harleys and motorbikes and things like that. These are all factors that can occur at home. Okay, so my answer to that is, first of all, if a horse, so you need I've got to just say that Virginia and Noah's question, they have this very beautiful relationship. Noah really has a lot of trust for Virginia. He came to Virginia very scarred by people, kind of literally, and he really does trust her, okay, to not hurt him. Okay, she's got a lot of marbles in the marble jar with Noah. Okay, however, in this situation, it also says that with your relationship with the horse, it's layers that you're always adding, your layers. And Noah's got this trust with Virginia that that she's a good person. She does try to communicate with him, right, and that she's not going to hurt him. But what we need to do is we need to add another layer on top, and we've got to train Noah to look to Virginia as the filter to the environment, okay? Because horses are different from us, and as we learned in those people that did the challenge last week when we worked through my course, Things to Know About Horses, is that we learnt that horses see and perceive the world differently. They don't cope with change very well. They're very triggered by change in their environment because that's their defense. Their defense is to notice things and get the hell out of there if there's any kind of worry. So horses are triggered by changes in their environment. We're not so much, okay? We are very good at being able to handle changes in our environment and to be able to assess whether we're safe or not. They're not. It's just any change, you got to check it out, might be concerning. So how a herd works of horses, how they're evolved to work, is that there's all horses, this is what I was explaining in yesterday's live, horses have a varying degrees of being able to work out whether things are okay or not, okay, in terms of speed. So the more leader type horses are very good at being able to assess and go, no, we're okay, and then calm themselves down, right? Other horses have to subcontract that out to other horses, to these leader horses. So they go, oh my God, there's change. Oh my God, I'm very worried. Am I okay? Right? And they look to others, right? And the leader horses will go, yeah, we're okay. and they go, oh, we're okay. And they'll still be up, and then the leader horses will relax, and then the other horses will relax. Okay, so they need another horse or another thing to be able to help regulate their emotions, okay, to be able to see that they're okay, to be able to make sense of that change in the environment that's happening, and then they need that help to emotionally regulate and go down. So they take that note from the horses that are able to cope better. In fact, on calmly and confident horses, it was probably over a month ago now, I popped up a little bit of footage of a small herd of horses going into a new paddock, and I asked you to pick who the leader was. You know, who's the most influential. I think I said who's the most influential horse is in this group, and it was people were really good at picking it. It was a little mare, okay, and what she did, you could tell it was her because she kind of controlled the direction, even though she might not have been leading. She was the one that changed direction first, okay, whenever there's a direction change when they were running around. And she was also the first to eat, okay, put her head down and eat. So she was commanding the kind of the direction, and she was the quickest one to calm down, okay. So what you got to do, you got to become that little mare, okay. You got to become the filter, and you actually have to teach the horse to do that. And the first big component of it is being able to train the horse to pay you attention and get their focus. And that's a motivational thing. So just say that's the next layer on top. So Virginia and Noah have this really lovely relationship. She's got lots of marbles in the marble jar. And through the challenge we've been doing, Virginia's done a really good job at kind of improving Noah's responses. Instead of Noah just thinking things that might be a bit of an option, and you know, he's a very special horse. He might go off and do some things on his own. But that's kind of thing what you got to kind of go the next level and get him really engaged in you. Okay, really engaged in you, and you've got to teach him that when something changes in his environment, he's got to be able to turn his attention to you, check in with you, and then you have to be that emotional. So you have to be able to down-regulate yourself, okay? So if you get up with it and you get flustered, that's just going to create the little mare's worried, so I'll continue being worried, you know. Getting back to the talk about that little herd video that I put up. So you've got to become the filter that says it's okay. And so you got to be okay about whatever he's looking at. And I said that trick last week, I think, whenever I did another live, when I said, when things are novel, you talk to them in a very friendly voice, okay, whatever it is, even if it's the motorbike in the paddock next door, you know, sing out to it, say hello, even if it's some rock somewhere, sing out, say hello to the kangaroos, and how are you, so you make sure that you got to calm yourself down, that you're not worried about it, because you remember that you got to be the filter that says it's okay. So you got to train him to be more focused and attentive, okay, so there's an element of obedience there. And then there's got to be the control and understanding within yourself, okay? So that's what helps with that. I will say, though, that if horse does see something novel, remember my 13-second rule. If they do see something really novel, okay, give them that 13 seconds to have a look at it. Just let them have a look at it. You talk to it, say hi to it, okay, and guarantee that if you just let them have a look for 13 seconds, okay, they will... they'll be able to assess it themselves slightly. They're checking in on you. They can feel your heart rate's okay and everything like that. Then you'll see them, they'll break attention from it, and they will, you know, and then they'll kind of down-regulate the level of threat. Okay? So I hope that gives you some ideas. Okay. All right. And this is the next question. I would just like to be a better leader for us both to work confidently together when riding out at Adult Riding Club. There might be a judge's tent or area in front of the clubhouse that might be shaded under an awning, or even approaching an obstacle that causes concern. These might all be amplified by wind and flapping, etc. Okay, well, first of all, when it says, I'd like to be a better leader, I want everyone to replace that with, I'd like to be a better filter. Okay, like that. Leader just kind of infers just being bossy. But remember the leaders, the horse leaders, right? Leaders in a herd, they're not the bossy ones. They don't boss, they're actually the least influenced horse by other horses. Okay, that's what makes them special. That's actually what makes them leaders. They're not beholden to it. So you got to be a better filter for the horse. So you got to be less affected by it, and you've got to be, busy taking them doing your thing. Okay, so they're following you. You're not worried about that. You're cool about that, and we're going over here. Okay, so think about it like that. We're not necessarily bossing them. We're busy doing our own thing with them, and they're following us, and we're being a filter. Okay, a filter that's letting them know that you've assessed it with your human superpower of being able to check out for threats, and they're okay. Okay, they're going to be okay. And that whole mindset within yourself is something that I have to talk about and train, because me just saying that makes it sound easy, but there's as I kind of mentioned in the other live, there's things that we got to do with ourselves to control our thoughts, and then it all comes together. We got to train the horse. We've got to teach ourselves skills, and we got to develop qualities within ourselves. This whole confidence building thing, okay, has a few layers to it. Okay, so you've gone out to Adult Riding Club. Okay, this is what I suggest you do, because remember, you got to respect the horse and how it sees the world and stuff like that. So when I go take my horses out, the first thing I do is I just lead them around. I take them for a walk, okay, and I lead them around, and I just have a look at things, and I'm noting them about how they're feeling about certain stuff. If there's a loud speaker or something, I might find the patch of grass closest to the speaker I can, just to hang out for a while. I might have a bit of a carrot party there, or let them chew on some grass. Just be really strategic. Yeah, but I'll just take them for a little walk. I do like getting to events early, just say if I can go for a walk around and stuff like that before things are being set up or before things are going, so I can get up real close to stuff. I'll do that, and I'll just have some carrots in my pocket and stuff like that, and I'll make little party spots all over the place. Okay, and then I'll do some groundwork and make sure the horse is breathing really well, and they've got some of the adrenaline and stuff that's being pumped into their system out of themselves. So you see, I'm very strategic in what I do to set my horse up. And then what I do, when it comes, so normally when I've done that, I've normally eliminated a lot of worry about a lot of those spots already, just by leading and then groundworking, and then when I get on their back, I get the horse really with me and stuff like that. And what I do is I go and find, when I get on a horse, I go and find the spot that they feel the most comfortable working in. And I work there for a while, because I got to create that real connection. I really got to get them really following me. All right. Then what I do, I have a note the things that they might. I feel their body. I feel kind of where they're drawing towards or they're drawing away from, and I note those things, right? And I see them all around as like repulsion zones, like little negative signs that are pushing them away, and things they're drawing to are little positives. Okay, so I kind of see whenever I'm working a horse, it's kind of in my mind, I got all these kind of spots that I know that the horse is kind of worried about. So what I do, I also know where I've got to work or I've got to compete in this zone here, and I'm noting if I've got some negative zones and stuff in there. So what I do, I work the horse, and then I'm just really strategic about where I do slower work or I rest them. And I start, so what I do is when I work the horse and get them breathing and with me, and then when I rest them, and I might give them a sugar cube or something as well, I'm doing it in those negative zones, okay? Because what I'm doing, I'm adding positive to the negative to make that zone neutral, all right? So that's what I do. And what I do is I really neutralize the zones before I get on. And so it's a lot of preparation. So I prepare them for it. And I'm also exposing them to things that they might be worried about. So just say in dressage, in my sport, you get judges sitting at tables with tablecloths on them, and nothing can be more traumatizing than a tablecloth for a horse sometimes. So, I'll set a tablecloth up in the arena, and that's our party time table, and then I'll go to the venue and I'll take a tablecloth with me, and I'll put it on the judges' table, and that's where we have party time. We work, and I just do the same thing. So that's how I do it. So I really prepare for it. I just take my preparation to the next level. Okay, and then I end up with horses that are seen a lot, and they're okay. And then the more experience they get with it, it's less and less and less preparation that I have to do every time. So I hope that gives you some little bit of understanding. It's like how you're preparing, go the next level. You know, there's more you can do to help a horse get over these things. However, just say I've done all my preparation and a horse will still balk at something, okay, in a competition. Then, you know, I'll make a decision right then and there about how much I can push that horse to, you know, to go over somewhere or do something. If I can, just say I'm a dressage competition and they're worried about a viewing area, you know, I just might have to take the outside track there. So it might not be the most, you know, I might not be able to do the exact, I might just have to come off the track a little bit. So I will compromise my performances to what I can do. So I don't want to overwhelm the horse. I don't want to push them over threshold in a competition environment. Okay. I'd rather miss an obstacle. I'd rather go a little bit wide or cut a corner on the dressage arena. I'll cut some scores off, you know, to do that. Yeah. So I'm making decisions. So preparation and decisions when it happens. So I hope that helps. I'm just going to turn my attention to your comments now. All right, helpful. Karen, very interesting topic. Deborah, you're late. That's okay. Beck, I saw the 13-second rule in action. It was dead on. It is, isn't it? It's 13 seconds. You can sit there and count it. But you'll see the horse that will, you know, look at something, grow to 18 hands, and then just start counting, because in 13 seconds they'll do this. They'll be staring at it intently, and that's their this is the investigatory reflex, right? It's trigger. It's a reflex, right? Count to 13 seconds and you'll see them do this. Soon as they've done that little look away, you know you're all right. You know they've gone, oh, no, okay, not going to kill me, but I'll just look at it for a little bit longer. You know that they've come down, yeah. It is. And when you know these things, it just settles you, you know. These are things, as I said, that's why the first course I built was a knowledge course, is to understand things about the horse as a species so you can interpret why they're doing something. Because when you've got this layer of understanding about them, they become very predictable. Horses are very predictable. The wildest, most out of control horse is predictable. The horse I wrote about, that I just read about, the big question at the start, the Percheron Cross, that horse is predictable to me. Okay, that totally makes sense. I can see, I know what's happened there. It's predictable. Okay, Virginia, excellent advice that clarifies things well. Yeah, no worries. Zoe, carrot parties are so good. Yeah, party time it's a special time, and it's not just like, you know, the horse just doesn't enjoy it, and it's allowed to enjoy things. Okay, but you can be strategic with your party times, you know, have party time do a couple of extra things for you besides being nice. Virginia, good stuff. Feel like I'm on the right track. Oh, Virginia, you are so on the right track. It's not funny. Okay, you really are. You've done amazing things with Noah. He's an absolutely special horse, and it's like you're just layering on top now, training. And to be honest, where Noah came from, you couldn't have done this really any quicker. You've done it right. You had a horse that had a very bad perception of human beings. Very bad. Okay, and you've spent the years that you had to do to get this horse in a place that, you know, he can now go up a level and to see and take your relationship and your partnership to the next level. Okay, so next question. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. All right, I would love to be able to competently handle my beautiful major before he gets stressed response for fight and flight or freeze. I am unable to diffuse or recognized he has reached this state, then be able to ride him through the jump and the spins and the attempt to bolt. Okay. All right. This is skills. Okay. Because these things here, and this is what happens when you've lost when you get in this space with a horse, is that you're focusing on the really things that they're doing when the horse becomes completely and absolutely overwhelmed. Okay, and the things they do when they've been pushed over threshold. What I want to teach you is that you can prevent that. Okay, he's going over threshold for probably a lot of reasons that you're not realizing. Okay, and when you learn to work a horse, train them, influence them, understand how their mind works, you can stop them from getting into that. So it's not how to handle them when they're like that. It's how to prevent them from getting like that. Because remember this, right? Think about in history. We would take horses and ride them into a battlefield. Okay, horses will do that. They are the most gentle, trainable creature on the planet. They are more trainable than a dog. And they would do incredible things that is completely against their ingrained, you take one of the most reactive prey animals on the planet, and you can get it to go into a battlefield for you. Okay, it's because of their nature and what they are, is that they're just so highly trainable, and they can learn to really trust you and to follow you anywhere into a battlefield. So you can do it, but you got to learn how to do it. Okay, you got to learn how to do it. And so your focus is on the bad things that they can do when they get overwhelmed. When I want to change everyone's focus to how do I prevent that from happening, because you can do it. Okay, you can do it. You just got to understand horses and a little bit deeper than what is out there that we traditionally learn about. Okay, what we traditionally learn about. So for the first 30 plus years of my life, I realize now that I only understood horses by 1 or 2%. And that's where most of the population goes. Because they are so trainable and gentle, people get away with only knowing that much. Okay. And then they just, you just get far, when they flip and get overwhelmed and they do these things, they become frustrating. But when you know them and you know actually more about the species than more than what is kind of culturally given out in Pony Club, that's really superficial understanding of this very beautiful, gentle, trainable creature. Okay. When you learn about them and then you learn to work with them and how to help them get good at things and the time that it takes and the patience you got to have with them and what to look for, you can get horses to be able to go into battle for you, okay, where they can be not worried. And as I said, it's layers of learning how to work with them, how to influence them, okay, how to build their confidence, okay, and then giving you the skills to be able to have the skills of the methods of actually working with them, okay, so the methods and the techniques and the decision-making framework that goes with that, and then the stuff within you, so you be the type of human that the horse will follow into battle. Does that make sense? So how you handle him is that you stop him from even getting there, and then you stop him from getting there, you be able to recognize it earlier if it is, and then you make better decisions to either prepare better or to diffuse the situation, as you've said. Okay, but that can all be done, but you got to understand, it's just no quick fix to learning about horses and how to work with them. It is an absolute dedication. But if you love horses, you'll love the journey. You love the exploration into who they are, what they are, and how to form this relationship. And it's a very special relationship. It's an interspecies relationship. Okay, humans have two main interspecies relationship. One is with our dogs and two is with our horses. And I'm sure people have relationships with their birds and their cats or whatever. But in history, those two animals stand out, have been the animals that help us do jobs. And I know there's some other animals like pigeons and other things that can also do, but the two really main ones are the horse and the dog. And by understanding both species, you can actually make your relationship even, they can go to a deep level. But it does require a lot of commitment and time and patience and skill learning and being prepared to fail a lot and make a lot of mistakes, because that's how you learn. But it is there. And when you go on the journey and you get to the point of where I am, it's... I'm lucky that the life I've lived is this one here that involves horses, because it's certainly, if I drop dead tomorrow, I drop dead, and I've had this incredible experience through horses. Okay, just going to turn my attention now to the comments. Okay, Marianne, are you still able to do this even when there's other things happening quickly? other riders, dogs and cattle, etc. Absolutely, as I said. So just say this. That's a really good question, Marianne. That's an awesome question, because are you able to do all this when there's other things happening? Okay, part of training and what you learn how to do is actually prepare your horse for these other things. Okay, so that's part of the decision making process. So when you're building a horse, it's like when you're training it and you're building it to be able to cope with this. And you're actually deliberately, when you get to a point in training, you're adding in all these things deliberately. So you create the experiences they have so they can learn how to deal with this situation. Okay? So you prepare them better. And not only that, part of that preparing them is actually preparing you. So it's like, okay, I'll tell you what it's like. Okay? It's like learning to fly a plane and what pilots go through. Pilots spend a lot of time in flight simulators. Okay? When you learn to work with horses, you learn to put your horse in a flight simulator. Okay? Part of training is going through a flight simulation kind of exercises and training. Okay? So you prepare yourself, and part of you putting the horse in the flight simulating of setting up, like I set up friends to come ride with young horses, to come over and ride, or pull them out when people have lessons and stuff like that, and they can tie next to the arena and they can see all the horses in the arena and experience it. So you got to set it up. That's why it's really good to have to surround yourself with people that are like-minded, that you can all work together. And the one thing I'm really proud of is that all around Australia, I've made these little friend groups that all hang out and they all do good training. They all support each other and create simulated environments for their horses. However, so you simulate, but just say something happened. I'm on a young horse and I'm not ready to, I haven't been ready to do any flight simulations with it or whatever, and something really triggers it, like, kangaroo jumps out of a bush or helicopter flies over above, all weird things that are out of the blue. And as I said, it's like, well, there's a lot of within training, there should be, you train a horse. One of the first thing you do when you train a horse and when you reboot a horse is that you learn to shut it down. Okay, you learn to take its hindquarters away, disengage it and stuff like that, so you can take its power away, and you can stop it. Okay, so you put within your training are all these little safety buttons that you've put in there. So I would do that. And of course, the other tool in my toolbox I talk about a lot is the figure of 8. Okay, allowing the horse. Lots of people, when the horse gets worried, this is a big mistake, because this is the human kind of trigger response in you. When a horse gets up and it wants to move and you're terrified that it's going to bolt, you want to stop it. So people grab hold of those reins and they want the horse to stop. Well, when you're a flight animal and you're inside you is got worried and it's triggering you to want to move, someone locking you down and wanting you not to move just pushes your panic further. So imagine this. This is the analogy I give people. You're walking along in the shopping centre, all right? You're walking along all fine. And then suddenly this crowd of people turn around and start running the other way, okay? All right, so it creates panic in you. You'd know that would automatically trigger panic in you. But someone then grabs you in a bear hug and won't let you move, okay? Think about how your panic level would just skyrocket, okay? And that's what people do when they try to put the brakes on and don't want their horse to move. A big thing for people that have really lost a lot of nerve in the saddle is, as I said, it's the figure of 8. It's the best goddamn figure of 8 you've ever ridden in your life. And allow your horse to move, but put them on the shape that you can control. But don't try to shut them down and stop. Just direct their energy. Because allowing them to direct their energy and then work out they're okay, they'll come back to you pretty quickly. But if you go and put them in a bear hug and send them into panic, then you're just going to trigger more than just their feet moving. You're going to trigger them, really losing it. So you got to learn to just let them move and learn to have some faith that they will come to you, because they will. If they're allowed to move, then they'll quickly realize that, they're okay. They're okay. There is nothing there. I'm not about to die. And so they'll start dialing down in their anxiety. All right. But prepare, simulate, train well, prepare your horse, put emergency buttons on them in training. Okay. So I hope that helps with that. Okay. All right. How am I going for time? Good. I'm going good for time. All right. Next question. All right. I want to feel in control, irrespective of how my riding skills have gotten rusty from over the years. This is another question from Hanifa. Okay. So I want to feel in control, irrespective of how my riding skills have gotten rusty over the years. But I believe in my mind, if I can get out there, my riding skills will come back to me the more I actually do and get to know my horse and how he moves. I want to be able to get that mind switch of being nervous and thinking the what ifs. If I can get past that, then I will feel I can do more, not necessarily go to events, but at least plot around the property and build more of a bond in the saddle. Okay, this is actually a good question. Okay, now this is Hanifa, and I know Hanifa, and I work with Hanifa. I'm actually able to go out there. In fact, I'm going to see her this afternoon and help her a bit more along in her journey, because she's come from being just, really being triggered with fear with a horse on the ground to actually now we're getting up and we're getting back into the saddle, and we're dealing with some pretty serious fear there, because Hanifa did have a terrible wreck off her horse. Okay, things happen at Team Pangin. Her horse got her horse got worried, like very, very worried, and he took off, and Hanifa turned him, and I think he might have bucked a couple of times because he got really up, which could have been from Hanifa grabbing him. Okay, and then she remembers turning him left, and she fell off and hit the ground and went unconscious. Okay, so this is serious. So she got serious fear trigger from that incident. Okay. What has to happen here? So that was an unfortunate incident on a horse that was probably created from a number of factors that I can probably think about. But what I've done is I worked with Hanifa, and I dialed her back. It took me a few goes of meeting her to get her to convince her. We're going to the round pen. We get the round pen really good. We learn to connect ourselves, our movement, become more aware of it, our energy, and she got good confidence in the round pen and then in groundwork. And the horse really has proved himself to be a lovely horse. She has actually bought a very lovely horse in Jasper. He really is a dude. Okay, so she's got an appropriate horse to do this. All right, so now she's got to get back in the saddle. So what I have to do, my job is with a coach with this type of serious level fear phobia that Hanifa has, is I have to help her get over this fear phobia that she has. And she's been ticking away of it by herself, which is good. And my homework that I gave her, because you got to remember, we've also been stuffed up because of COVID over here in Greater Sydney. So my homework that I left her with is I wanted her to go through all the groundwork, to really note what he's doing well, see the green flags, etc. And to ride him, I didn't actually want her to ride. I just wanted her to get on and off him, flex him, do hindquarter yields, things like that. And that's all. On and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. Okay, so that's all she had to push herself to do. Okay. And so what we have to do, we've got to take that kind of thing to the next level. But, then you're dealing with riding skills. They are rusty from not riding for a while. So my job as a coach is to get her over this little fear phobia. And when Hanifa, my next kind of, once she gets on and off and can do that good and can get on the horse and can go through the flexing and the yielding the hindquarters, and we repeat that enough times and show her brain that she's safe doing it, so we can downgrade that phobia, okay, and desensitize it, basically. Desensitize it and counter condition it, okay? So we've got to do that. And that's repetition of success, repetition of success, repetition of success. So today when I go and see her and we get into that saddle, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing repetitions of that to turn down her fear. And then her job is going to stay in this round yard okay? And she's going to clock up some kilometers in the round yard, in the place where she feels safe. Clock up kilometers from there until she has got to start listening to herself and making decisions based on her level of confidence of when that is stretched out. Okay, that comfort zone's got to be created. She's got to clock up some kilometers. First of all, it's just going to be walking. A lot of walking until the walking is like okay and not triggering her. And then we're going to be doing some trotting. And I introduce what I do is my foundation riding thing is we'll do bends to a stop. Okay, so we're going to do walk, bend to a stop, walk, bend to a stop, walk, bend to a stop, a lot of that. And then we're going to do walk, trot, bend to a stop. So she's just going to work on the trot transition, okay, and then stop. All right, and then we're going to do walk, trot, bend to a walk. So just back to a walk, and then we're just going to be doing that. So so there's two things that are occurring here with Hanifa and her beautiful Jasper is that we're rebooting Jasper's responses, but I'm teaching Hanifa how to reboot Jasper, but at the same time, I'm giving her this sense of control. All right. And not only that, I'm giving her a strategic plan that she has to do to get in the saddle every day. When she does get in the saddle, depending on how she feels, she's got to make really good decisions about that. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen, and that's what's going to make her feel in control, because she's not going to feel in control until she's had that, got to deal with her fear. I've got to teach her skills, and she's going to have to clock up kilometers, and all that's going to be, it's all a process, it's all a journey, it's all sticking to it. It's not putting your big girl's panties on. It's listening to that fear inside you. It's finding it. It's finding the trigger, and then it's going to the trigger. So just say Hanifa's trigger is turning left. So she's okay. She sits in the saddle. That's okay. She'll flex the horse right. That's okay. Flexing it left makes her feel a little uncomfortable because it's triggering that left turn in her mind. Okay, so we've got to just trigger that left. Turn that left until she gives me a rating. I get her to give me a rating out of 10 about how she's feeling in terms of her anxiety levels. Okay, we repeat it. Every time she repeats it, it clocks down, right? When it clocks down to a level where she doesn't feel it anymore, we add on and we do hindquarter yields. And again, I'm checking in with her. What's your anxiety level at the moment? How comfortable do you feel? And we just we find the trigger, and we just touch it, right? We keep touching it until it stops being a trigger. It's like a kind of like a trigger point, or if you've got a sore spot, you keep rubbing it until it goes away. Okay, so that's the approach that I'll use with her. So we're rebooting the horse. I'm teaching Hanifa skills. Hanifa's learning the skills, and then we're working on the specific fear phobias. Alrighty. So there's lots of layers to it, but that's how we're going to do it, through time and effort, and Hanifa puts in a lot of time and effort with the horses, so I have no doubt that she'll go there. She's already gone like this, if you can understand that she was even worried just to lead the horse to begin with, or even have him approach her in the paddock. Okay, just looking at some comments there. Jane, Hanifa, lucky you're having a lesson today. Yeah, it's actually my first coaching session in months. It's ridiculous, besides the ones, of course, I do online. Zoe, having all the emergency reactions as things I do all the time, like figure of 8 and taking my hand out to the side instead of gripping, makes it all much easier to do when I'm feeling worried or anxious. Yes, exactly. So what I'm doing is I teach you what to do. I'm giving you habits of when you're worried, instead of ripping the reins back and not having any consciousness about you, I give you, and I'm training you to have responses that are proactive and diffuse instead of reactive and escalate. Okay. So all these things made me much more confident in my riding, and that helps Bridget feel like I've got this, and she doesn't have to get up more upset. Yeah. So instead of having the habits, as Zoe just touched on there, your habits, instead of escalating the problem, which happens most of the time, they're able to de-escalate. Okay, so that at the worst they don't add to it, and at best they diffuse it. Okay, and you learn how to do that. Okay, how am I going for time? 10 minutes. Good-o. Okay, another good question. Stress and negative emotions. How do I bring a horse who freezes I would prefer flight. I can ride through flight. So how do I bring back a horse that freezes? All right. All right, so let's just stay with that. There's a few parts to this particular question. As I said, how do you bring them back? Well, first of all, you prevent it. You prevent it from happening. Okay, remember, that's the solution. That's the bit that people are missing, because again, I'm saying it, I know I'm repeating myself, but you focus on the bad things that are happening instead of it's like a pilot focusing on, like, how do I stop the plane from crashing? How do I stop it from running out of petrol? How do I stop it from being picked up in a tail, in bad weather? And it's like, the answer is, well, you look at your radar and you fly around it, or you make sure you've got enough fuel for the flight. You prevent it from happening. All right. But I know why people are thinking like this, because I thought like this too, because I came from a conventional riding, introduction, dressage background where people do not look at horses as emotional feeling creatures. That's just not there. You don't understand the horse is actually a living, breathing, thinking creature, and you don't understand your own emotions. There's no discussion of emotions in learning to ride horses whatsoever. It's inside leg to outside rein. It's that type of thing. Get him rounder, more forward. It's not about, hey, horse is being a bit overwhelmed, let's drop it down and do something a little easier. It doesn't come into it. We just like, I think we need another bit, or get another girth or something like that. Okay, so it's not how we're trained to think, and I've got to train you how to think like this and to see the horse in a different light. So we want to prevent the horse from freezing. Okay, so what we do with a horse that freezes, well, okay, put me in that scenario. How do I answer that? So I've got a horse that freezes. Now, I haven't necessarily seen a real horse that's flipped into freeze for any period of time. Normally they'll freeze and then they'll do something else. They'll flip into, they'll run, or they'll lash out. Okay, one or the other. I've never seen them freeze for very long. Although I have seen, I don't know. See, this is the thing. I look at that and go, is your horse, there's a few other things that look like freeze, okay, but they're not freeze. One is a horse can shut down. That's a pretty horrific thing to see, that the horse will actually shut down and turn itself off when it gets totally overwhelmed. The answer to that is, and I have shut down a couple of horses by complete and utter accident. One, I actually shut a horse down just flexing it. Okay, another horse, I shut it down just asking it to go forward when I didn't realize it was really had a lot of struggle with going forward. It shut itself down because I managed to overwhelm them without knowing at the level that that's what was happening. In both cases, I brought them back by the horse that I was flexing, that I managed to shut down. I just dropped the reins completely and just asked him to move forward. So I gave another response. So I tapped into another part of his brain and got him to do something else that snapped him back out of it. The horse that shut down on me when I was riding it, I jumped off immediately and I put him in ground work. So I put him back in a situation that he felt successful at doing. Okay, so that could be what's been in none of those things. Shut down is not freeze, but I'm saying this is if this is not what I said, I don't normally see a horse freeze for very long. Okay, it's just a momentary thing where a horse will freeze before it either will lash out or run. They don't usually freeze for very long. The other thing a horse can do is just completely just say no. So it's not a freeze, it's just a point blank no, where they'll just arc up and go no. So in that case, that means if a horse has said no, like that, it's most likely because you've given it can't work out what you want to do, and it's just got completely confused and it's just gone no. Okay, so I would look and say, if a horse does that, it's because you're not giving it a way out. You're not giving it a simple answer. You've blown its brains and it's given up. So that could be what it is as well. And both of those things is prevented. It's done by having a good understanding of the horse and how to influence their behavior and how to train them. Okay. So Yes, I'm unsure with that. So I hope that gives you some answers there. All right, next question. Tips to identify when it is pain or saddle fit and not unwillingness or anxiety. Okay, this is really good. Okay, because I deal with this all the time. There's lots of horses in front of me that are like, okay, so is this behavioral or is this pain? Okay, and the horse won't be obviously lame. And remember, horses don't have to be lame to be terribly unsound. Remember that. Okay. Okay, so what, how you do it and how you tell the difference between pain and unwillingness is very, very good training. So I know when I take a horse and I give very good training with very consistent application of my cues and consistent consequences and repetition, I will watch how the horse learns. If the horse fails to learn, or if the horse is very, very slow in its progress to learn, or if the horse is inconsistent in its learnt response, then I know that the learning has interference. And that interference, 9 times out of 10, is pain. Okay? Mind you, I've also gone through the horse and palpated it. Normally with saddle, you can kind of get an idea that there might be a bit of a saddle fit problem, etc. But that's what I do. So training helps me identify whether it's pain, how well they learn and how well they respond. But I am being like a surgeon with my training and a surgeon with my application of cues and consequences. So I know that my training can't be faulted. So therefore my communication is good. My consequences are consistent. Yet I'm having a horse that sometimes does it or doesn't do it or is failing to learn, then I know I have a problem. Okay, there is a problem deeper. And so far I have been 100% correct in my assessment of horses that fail to learn. They have all been unsound. Okay, it's just something they've been a little bit difficult to find. And in fact, I just released, and I hope everyone took the time to watch it, was the story of the lazy horse, MC the lazy horse. She was a very good example of that, and you get to follow her journey. That I know I was the first trainer that her owner went to that actually said, your horse is emotionally not coping. There is something going wrong with this horse. And so when I worked with it, I went, okay, we're going to remove every possible source of confusion for this horse, confusion and motivation, and we're going to build its confidence. We're going to remove that from the worry cap. And then if there is still a problem, okay, then we know that there is something else in there. And that, that story that I told was specifically for that. I was able to improve that horse's canter a lot, but I could still see problems with it. And if you watch the video, some people might look at that horse cantering and think that the canter's fine compared to where it came from. Okay. However, I show you in the video the red flags about that horse's canter even then, and the fact that it just was not a consistent improvement. So it was slow improvement, which was a tip off, still showed some problems, and it failed to improve. And it was inconsistent in its response. And yeah, that horse has a very deep kind of untreatable and undiagnosable problem in its back end, deep below its spine. Okay, so I'm just going to turn my attention now to the comments. Okay, Deb, such a unique approach. Good luck, Hanifa, you've got this. She certainly does. Haley, yet Polly would freeze for 1 to 2 minutes, then lash out. Yeah, I only experienced her freeze on the ground, usually because when she saw mini ponies. Okay, all right. Yeah, they don't normally freeze for too long. They either snap out of it or they'll go next level. Yeah, the trick is with them, you've got to give them an out. You've got to give them somewhere to go and don't make them feel trapped or they will lash out. Yeah. Yeah, but normally I don't see it doesn't normally hang around for too long. Alrighty. All right, I've got a minute left, so I might just get the rest of these done. Getting over wanting to be liked by the horse. Yeah. This is a big one, and this is a lot of one that actually will probably be under the radar with many of you. Like, people are worried about upsetting the horse. They're worried about upsetting the horse that the horse won't love them or like them. if they be too tough on the horse, or they be worried that they'll make the horse anxious and make it worse. So you pander around it and don't want it to upset it to add to it. Unfortunately, what happens, both those are not. When you want a horse to like you, you can't apply the same logic or the same practices you use to get a person to like you. Okay, you can't, because they're different. Okay, so you got to remember that horses' reality is created by a physical world. So you communicate with them physically. When you just you make yourself really, really grey, you make yourself really hard to understand. So you're actually wanting someone like a horse to like you when you are not making any sense to it, where you keep changing the language, where you're not talking the language. And and so many times I work with a horse and someone will be, deep down, one of these deep beliefs inside you that are really invisible, these ones to want to be liked by the horse or not upsetting the horse. You'll see me work with the horse, and I'll give the horse a tap, a big tap, if I have to, something that, you'll avoid doing because you're worried about upset it, or you're worrying about it not liking it. And after a few minutes, you'll see that horse actually think I'm really good. That horse will not want to go, that horse will want to stay with me, even though I gave it a big tap. Okay, because I was really clear to that horse. That horse went, and I can see the horses take a deep breath out with me, because they go, oh God, you make sense. You make sense, human. And you see them breathe out, because it's like, I can navigate you, human. I can read you. You're really clear, human. And you can just see their stress level go down. And they like being with me because I'm really reliable, I'm clear, and they trust me because they can read me. Whereas they go back to their owner, which is worried about upsetting them, and they're just not clear. They're not clear. They're not motivating. They can't learn to physically navigate. The owner's not physically clear enough with them. And they just get frustrated. It's like trying to work with someone that speaks another language for you, that's not making any sense and not being clear what you want to do, and it's just not cool. So it's sad, because the things inside you that want the horse to like you are actually driving the horse away from you and frustrating it and putting a negative kind of perception over you with the horse. So it's always quite heartbreaking. So I feel like I give a lot of lessons of teaching people how to give a horse a tap. It's really terrible. But as I say, you got to be clear. Horses like clear, reliable people. That's how they navigate. That's how they understand. They'll give each other a bite or a kick or a push or stuff like that, and they'll still really like each other because they're clear, and they'll know that they just pushed into that horse's boundaries, and that's what they do. They're different from us. Okay, they like clarity. They like to be able to know how to navigate something reliably. That's what makes them have peace in their heart, And then when you're really clear and you also give nice scratches and carrots, then you're a really cool person. Okay. All right. I might end it there. I'll just read your comments there. Beck, thank you, Shelley. I love how you often get very similar questions over all the groups, but you still take the time to explain the answer. I believe this will help all of us get information into our heads and retain it. No, I don't care how many times I have to say the same thing. I do not care, because remember, my expertise, my deep research expertise is in people. That's what makes me different from other trainers. And I really know how humans work and how their knowledge is constructed in their brains, and how we conceptualize stuff and then how we put it into action. So that's actually part of the deal of working with people. And in fact, it's actually no different from the horse. If the horse is struggling to learn something, you just keep repeating it until they get it. And it's like, people, I'll just keep saying it, because I know that there will be some way I'll say something slightly different and it will help someone. They might have listened to me say the same thing 100 times, but I'll say just one word different, and it will mean everything. It'll give them that light bulb moment, and it will change. So I'm totally patient to say things the same, repeat and repeat. Anyway, I like talking about it, so I'll keep talking about it. All right, guys, so I'll wind up the live there. I hope you got something from that, and I think I'll just keep doing a live every day. I'll just give you a time for tomorrow. So please keep the questions coming in the live. and for the live, and I'll keep talking about them. All right, see you guys.